Pack Radio, a podcast produced by Winding Trails Media, for writers, by writers.
Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack.
Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host, David Allen Lucas, producer of Winding Trails Media, president of St. Louis Writers Guild, and working on a lot of different projects. I'll be happy when October comes and goes as far as getting room to work on certain projects. I've been working on audio dramas. I am now also working for my 5th degree black belt project, a knife fighting manual. So that will be self-published eventually. It'll probably be about a year from now. But yes, go ahead.
Will you be doing demonstrations?
I can.
Yes.
And I can do and I will be happy to teach people on how to do this. If I choose you as a student, that is. Of course, Kathleen Gore chose us.
You're denied.
To the world, if I choose you. I'm big. Also, too, let's see, based on when this is going to air, Brad and I will have already crossed blades at the Big River Steampunk Festival, but we will be crossing blades again at Archon. Yes. Before that, I'll be doing a presentation at PennCon in St. Louis on writing from inside the heart of darkness, writing the necessary villain. At Archon, as already mentioned, Brad and I will be crossing blades, talking about writing fight scenes and demonstrations. Brad also listens to my voice. But also, too, I will be giving a panel talk on Beyond the War of the Worlds, writing audio plays.
And when is PennCon?
PennCon is September 22nd through the 24th. Archon is 23rd, 24th. That's right, it's only Saturday, Sunday. 23rd, 24th, thank you. And then Archon is the 30th through October 2nd. October 2nd. October 2nd.
You can go on the 3rd, but nobody else will.
Yeah, no.
You're very lonely.
Oh, wow.
You and all the empty tables.
Yes, I will be crying. Okay, and with me today is my lovely co-host,
Kathleen Kayembe. I've published paranormal romance under the pen name Kaseka and Vita, and I'm recently back from Clarion 2016.
Yay! And we have missed you.
I have missed you guys too, but I have not recorded episodes while I was gone, so y'all have a bunch up on me. I need to catch up.
Yes, you do.
Everyone just needs to have me record random episodes. They're complete nonsense.
Yeah, I don't. I'm just going to leave that alone. But Kathleen will be on the panel talking about writing Beyond War of the Worlds. Okay. Right.
Yes, Brad R. Cook, author of the Iron Chronicles, which is Iron Horseman, Iron Zulu, and soon to be Iron Lotus.
You gotta stop forgetting Zulu.
No, I'm still editing, so like Lotus is in my mind right now.
Ironing it out?
Yes, I'm still ironing it out. And I'm gonna stop the puns right there because we had that whole pun episode recently.
Yeah, she missed the fun episode. You'll have to steal it offline.
You can also find A Clockwork Heart, my short story, available on Amazon. Find it all at bradarcook.com.
Lee Savage, author of Erotica for the Truly Wicked. And I will be at the Dark History and Horror Convention October 22nd and 23rd. At this moment, not sure I'll have a table, but I'll be there to do autographs and have some photo opportunities. And if you look under my alter ego, Carrie Lee Williams, you can also find my softer side. I have a couple of children's books.
I'm Melanie Clay, author of science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction.
My name is Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. Still hard at work on my first fantasy novel, which should still be out in 2017. I'll let you know when specifically at a future date.
And with us today, we have a special guest, who's also a fan of Right Pack Radio. We'll let him introduce himself.
My name is George Soroy. I am the vice president of the Missouri Writers Guild, and I also write science fiction for the young adult reader. I have 2 books currently available on Amazon for ebook. Excelsior and the 5-part sports serial From Parts Unknown. The second part of what I call the Excelsior journey, Ever Upward, is currently in editing, ready to go. Hopefully will be ready to go in November. And Excelsior is available on both on ebook, paperback, and audiobook.
Excellent, which I'm glad you brought up the audiobook, because that is what we're going to talk about today, is the question of audiobooks and do-it-yourself. George, you and I have both gone to be trained to be voice actors. You do it better than I do, but
Thank you very much.
it's one thing. It's amazing in that class what I learned about how to properly speak and how to properly read. It's that simple, just sitting down and reading a book into the microphone. It's beyond that. So, but how? I mean, the world has changed so much in how books are printed. How is that changing in audiobooks? I mean, can anybody do an audiobook now?
Yeah, and that's a major part of it, is that because of Amazon has been basically the game changer in all sense. They've done it for shopping, they've done it for self-publishing, and now they're doing it for audiobooks with ACX.com. And ACX means Audiobook Creation Exchange. And that basically allows you to set up deals with narrators and producers to have your audiobook put together. And you can either set up a deal where you would pay a flat rate for whatever they charge, or you can do what they call a royalty share, which is basically whatever money you get from Amazon, that gets split in half, and you share that with the narrator producer for as long as the book is out there. So that's it. If it becomes a big success, then you're doing well, and your narrator is doing very well.
To throw some numbers at what George is talking about, there are 37,000 producers in ACX who have currently produced 64,000 ebooks or audiobooks. And just to let you know, there are currently 3,000 titles that are open for auditions if you want to get into this game.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to turn my fantasy book into an audiobook, do I make myself an account and just throw it up for auditions and see who bites, or
It's better than that.
it's better than that?
Yeah.
What's the process, since I have no idea?
Basically, the setup, from what I understand on ACX, this is a part that I'm not as experienced with because I've focused more on the DIY part. But from what I understand is basically you would put out some text out there, and anyone who is interested, and you would also put out, like what sort of voice you're looking for.
Yeah.
If people match that voice, if you say you're looking for a male voice who is in their 30s, who has no accent that you can pick up anywhere, and then I would be just kind of raising my hand and seeing okay, well, what kind of text do you have?
Yes.
And then I would basically just read off that text to the best of my ability, and then send it off. And other people will do the same, and you would basically just select, whoever, all the many different people that will have auditioned for it, and then go from there.
So it's kind of, I guess it depends on what your project is. How many people are going to apply to it, and specifically who you're asking for as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, and
it's going to come down to how many people you've, what type of person you're looking for. But there's a huge, possibility range.
Because if I was going to get Threadcaster audiobooked, I would want me just less phlegmy.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to want to pick, generally you're going to go off your protagonist.
Yeah.
So who is your protagonist?
Me, but less phlegmy.
Especially if you're doing a first-person book. Because then you're going to want it to at least sound something like your protagonist.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to have a first-person POV character who is a female read by a male voice.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. It would be a definitely interesting choice.
I've
It can be
listened to
done.
audiobooks by that, and sometimes they do it well.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say is a couple of things. In a way, Jen, you brought up another question. I was quite caught that you brought it up. There are such things called full cast audiobooks, and as well audio plays. Gee, that's what I do. Where you actually have each character is voiced by someone else.
Now, that is not ACX.
ACX has them.
They do, but the point, like the majority of
Yeah,
what you're going
majority
to find
are
on
not.
ACX is
Right.
Is
a single narrator
Mhm.
reading your book.
Right.
is that the DIY portion of it? People bringing their own audio to Amazon?
Do you,
Bring your own.
yes, I'll
They do it yourself, DIY.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to do it yourself and you really want to bring it forward to cast, there are probably other ways to go about it than using ACX.
Hmm.
Just like with KDP, you know, if you're wanting to throw your book up and get it up,
Kindle Direct
Publishing. If you wanted to get your, book online, there's a lot of ways you can do it. KDP is just kind of the easiest platform, like the easiest road to walk down to
I
get
like
your book out there.
easy
Yeah.
sounds nice.
ACX is very much in the same, vein. They're both Amazon products. If you're familiar with KDP, ACX isn't going to be that weird.
So then, if you get an audiobook recorded or record one yourself
Mhm.
on ACX, is it then sold on Audible.com?
I believe
Yes.
so. Yeah.
Yes. It's sold in several
It's
places.
if you have like the exclusive deal, then it's sold through Audible.com and also on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Can you sell it other places as well, or is it an exclusive?
That I'm not 100% sure about because my
Yeah.
particular book was, like I have a small press publisher who actually like uploaded the file. I know she was talking about putting Excelsior on Apple as well, but I haven't heard anything about that yet.
It's
It's
from
actually gonna
her name,
affect
you're
your
Rocking
royalty
Horse,
rates
right?
and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Rocking Horse Publishing in,
Rocking Horse Publishing.
in Missouri.
Yes.
It used to be
Feel
in
free
St.
to shout
Louis.
it
I
out.
don't know
Yes.
if she counts that.
Yeah, I will definitely shout that out. Rocking Horse Publishing has been very, very good to me. So
But I will say the
illustrated for
beauty
her
part
before,
of
so
having
it's-
your stuff on Amazon is that you're going to get those buttons in a row.
Right.
So you're going to have the print book button right there, the ebook button right there, and the audiobook button right there. So it's one-stop shopping for anything that anybody wants.
Real quick, and then I know you've been waiting, Melanie. I just want to tie into what George said, rather tie into a question George was answering. 'Cause when I started, when I was doing one to try to figure out the method of distribution for my audio plays, I was looking at Audible and have backed off of ACX because unfortunately ACX requires that you get ISBNs.
Yes.
And that's the last thing I want for my radio plays, because that turns it into if I publish one of my own radio plays, that turns me into a pub, and that's not what I'm wanting to do here. But when I was doing the research, it did say it automatically puts it onto Apple. So
Real quick, just to throw this out,
and you-
if you have your book through ACX, it goes onto Audible, Amazon, and iTunes.
that's what about
There you go.
Yep.
I had a question. If you go the revenue sharing route, how much does it cost to get your audiobook made and put it?
That's the beauty part of ACX. There is no cost. So
It's just
what there
royalty
is
based?
Yep.
you and the producer then split the profits, or the royalties that come in.
Now the trick there is you've got to find someone's got to be willing to go for that risk with you. In other words,
I mean,
they've
you've got 37,000 people to choose from.
Right, exactly.
Lots of people are willing to shoulder the
And there's
risk.
lots of people who are, okay, I'm gonna jump to the other side, and then I'm gonna turn over to George or Brad. I'm not sure which one's have their fans first. Okay. On the voice acting side, for the most part, your voice acting modern day is commercials. Come on down and buy this latest car because you need it. Whatever.
That's actually what I was going to talk about, so that's fine.
Yeah. But there are so many of those voice actors that are interested in doing either anime or doing audiobooks. And this is an avenue for them to go in there and start playing with character voices.
Let's change anime to just voiceover work. Just
It is. Actually, that's all
voice
it is.
acting.
Yes.
Because
Voiceover.
there are lots of American cartoons that require voice acting as well.
Yeah, granted.
there is another venue that a lot of people seem to be taking for granted, not fully understand that they can have that opportunity as well, and that's video games.
Yes.
Yep.
Video games is a huge market,
Very
these
much.
days. But to add on to what Brad was talking about when he said where the audiobooks can be found, when they're on Amazon, they have a little thing that's called WhisperSync, and WhisperSync is one of the coolest things in the world because you can read your book, read the ebook that you're just reading on your Kindle. You can put it down, you can pick up your headphones and everything, and the audiobook will pick up right where you left off. It is a very, very cool thing. I was so happy to see that Excelsior became WhisperSync enabled, because not only because of that little bonus, but also as a great way to entice people to buy both the ebook and the audiobook. Because when you buy the audiobook, you're only getting the audiobook for about $2 more.
I was going to say, that's actually one of the coolest things about WhisperSync is the packaging deal.
The packaging deal is fantastic, and they're not taking advantage of the audiobook producer or anything by shortchanging what's coming to them, as well. So it's a great thing for everybody. Everybody wins.
WhisperSync is something that's very cool. What I was going to throw out, so you were talking about voice actors. If you are so inclined, you listen to us here every week on the radio, you're hearing our voices. If you are so interested, you can become one of these 37,000 producers. It's not hard. There's a whole spot on the website where you, give some test audio and stuff like that, and they'll give you a real quick thumbs up, thumbs down as to whether or not you have the voice for it. And you can, kind of run that whole route. And then if you want, you can move forward and improve your voice and get your cadence down and everything like that. Become a producer.
Really fast, just to tie straight into that. Plug for Winding Trails Media. If you go to the Winding Trails Media page and the casting calls, I have got a link on there that will take you straight to recommended sound equipment. You don't need to spend a lot. I do recommend that very strongly that you do not just rely on your computer microphone to be your recording device. There's problems with pops and so forth. That's great for Skype and other things, not for this level of professionalism. We should talk about. Number two, real fast, and then Kathleen, you're next, I think, is if you can't, and I will tell you, voice-over training is expensive. I think George, you and I both spent about what, 1,100?
Yeah.
1,001, yeah.
Where did you go to for your training?
We went to Clayton Studios different times.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-day-a-week course for 4 weeks. We got time in the booth. Actually, literally every session had time in the booth. Did a lot of recording stuff. Fantastic teacher, Jim Singer. Fantastic location to do it at. I do recommend, if you're in St. Louis, look up Clayton Studio or voice over St. Louis or voice over STL.
I keep trying to remember which one it is.
Yeah, you can get there from Clayton Studio.
Google, one of them will pop up right.
One of them will pop up. But if you don't want to spend the money, or at least if you want to get your feet wet without doing it, there's plenty of training programs on YouTube as well. I highly recommend those.
Well, and ACX will help you.
Yeah.
And LibriVox too, LibriVox. If you want just free experience, you can record there. They have.
What kind of things do they produce?
They do.
Everything's in the public domain.
Yes, public domain. I was like, there's a
There's a word for it.
Yes. So books that are in the public domain, they will record. They tell you how to go about doing it if you want to join them and record it yourself. And it's also a great place to just find free stuff to listen to.
Yeah, because everything they produce is free. They ask for donations.
I'm going to ask more questions about the
Go for it.
process, if you had something to tie into this.
Nope, I'm going to talk about actors. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, we keep mentioning that our actors, our voices, are producers. Since I'm going to guess that most people listening to the podcast are probably writers. If, again, I decided to turn Redcaster into an audiobook, how much does my hand get on the project? Like, is it my responsibility to post it and host it? Or is the producer recording and then they're responsible for posting it?
For ACX, which is that's the only thing I've used, so the DIY stuff I'll deal with. But in terms of you're going to get audition tapes, which is a snippet that you've posted of people reading that bit. You're going to like somebody's voice and you're going to pick that person's voice. They're going to go off and produce it. So they're going to be the ones to record it. They're going to be the ones to kind of do everything, and then they're going to fire you a copy back. And you're going to listen to it, and then you're going to go back and forth if they're like not pronouncing a name right or something like that. And then, but in the end, I don't remember who posts it.
Because Amazon posts it.
It's either, I can't remember. I think it's the writer who ends up being the one who is actually,
Or publisher.
the publisher. Who ends up being the one who actually posts it up there. But Amazon and ACX already does all the back end stuff, so like you don't have to write anyone a check.
That's nice.
They're gonna just split any money that comes in. Amazon's gonna take its cut, and it's gonna farm out the rest to the two of you, and you go from there. But something I was gonna say towards actors, David was mentioning a lot of like commercial type voice. I find less of that on ACX.
Yes.
I find a lot more what you would almost call like a classically trained actor. Who actually, and I'm not talking Shakespearean here, I'm talking, like what you would normally hear coming out of your TV. But done in kind of a reading voice, where, reading voice tends to be something specific. If you've listened to a lot of audiobooks, you already know what I'm talking about. It has a slower, steadier cadence to the words.
Narrator voice.
Yeah, the narrator voice. And I'm glad you said that about actors. Being classically trained for a stage, doesn't mean you're going to transfer over well to audio. It's really a weird thing. So that's just an FYI. I definitely would recommend going back to clipboard, listen to some of those YouTube videos at least, to get started on it.
To throw it out here, and I'll throw myself under the bus.
Okay.
So I considered becoming an ACX voice person because I like reading stuff. Why not? And I went through their whole process of kind of thinking, and one of the things I got back was I have a nice rhythm to the way that I read, but you can hear every breath I take.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that got flagged. It's like, not the best quality.
Well, now that you told me this, I'm sure between George and I, we can tell you how to improve that.
I can definitely.
But yeah, so that's, that was one of the things that got flagged in my, I don't know, it was kind of through their just testing phase. It wasn't really. So.
Looking around, seeing anyone have, I thought we had fingers up.
Should we move on to the DIY portion?
Yes, I think so.
Because I'm curious about what that entails. It's different from what we've already spoken of.
Yes, my
Go for it, George.
questions were about that process.
Well, as I put down the book here,
Cracks
and get comfortable.
He's getting into it.
Basically, the reason why I went into the whole DIY thing in the first place was really as I've said in other interviews and everything, I attribute to my mother not reading Excelsior. As it turns out that she is a big fan of audiobooks and everything. She's got plenty of those. And there was one time when she was trying to cheer me up by referencing something in Excelsior and wound up getting it completely wrong. I was like, there's no princess in this. Did you even read it? She admitted that she had not. And so my way of thinking was just like, okay, if you're not going to read it, and I totally get it, she's very busy and everything, and it's not her genre, so I'm not getting down on her for that. But if she's not going to read it, fine, I'll read it to her. That was my way of thinking, and I also know that that there are quite a few characters in my book that, as I was writing it, I had a certain voice in my head as I was going through it. And so when I had done the voiceover lessons, because I wound up losing my job last year and was looking around. I happened to find Clayton Studios, and it turns out that Clayton Studios was very close to where I was working at the time. So I knew that place. I passed by it a lot and never knew that they gave those sort of lessons. When they gave me the price tag for it, that kind of put a stop on it a little bit, because that's not exactly what you just go ahead and throw money at. Even if I did still have my job, it would have been a rough way to go. So I decided I was going to set up a Kickstarter campaign, and I reached out to my fellow authors, and I said, look, if you have something that you would like me to read for 500 words, I will narrate that for $10. If you have 1,000 words, I'll narrate that for $20. and enough people that I knew on Facebook and through real life wound up contributing to the Kickstarter campaign so much that I wound up reaching my goal. So I went through it. I had the lessons. I recorded both a commercial and an animation demo, and sent a sample over to my publisher, Rocking Horse Publishing. They responded saying, yes, absolutely, go with it. It sounds great. And for 2 months, from February to April, I was narrating the whole book. That was for the first month. And then doing all of the editing and the mastering the second month. And then finally, I delivered the final version by the end of March of this year.
Yeah, so, I'm sitting here, and of course nobody can watch me on this microphone, but I'm sitting here laughing and nodding my head at George the entire time because, like him, I constantly drove by Clayton's studio. I had no clue that
Yeah.
he gave this. And yeah, the price tag we've already mentioned before, what we paid, yeah, that was an ouch when I first saw it. Something
Yeah,
else.
but you guys got stuff out of it, right?
Oh yeah.
We've got,
So there.
got a lot out of it.
Yeah,
Money
a whole
well
lot.
spent.
Yeah.
And by the way, we keep talking about producers, just a sidebar. Producers in the audio world are similar to your directors as well, executive producers in your movie world.
We should probably talk about that a bit. I mean, when
Yeah.
we mention a producer, that's just the title they give them.
Yeah.
So you're really the producer, the director, the editor, the actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You know, you're wearing every hat there. And, George kind of touched on this. I know David's touched on this before in episodes. The editing is actually substantial.
Can be.
There is a lot of editing that goes into these audiobooks. Probably, almost equal in time to the taking that you're actually speaking the words. So if you guys want to touch on that, feel free. You have much more.
Yeah.
I would think it
Oh, yeah.
would be more than that because you
It
have to
actually
listen
is.
It
to all the
probably
words
is, yeah.
at least once, if not multiple times.
Go ahead.
Well, it's definitely difficult, but at the same time, there are little methods that you can put in along the way that will help you out. You can do what I do. I'll screw up a lot. It'll take me about an hour or so to read a chapter, and when I'll get myself like really psyched up and everything, I will read the first 3 words and all of a sudden stumble. And as soon as I do that, I go, and that marks my spot.
Yeah.
And then I wait 5 seconds and then I start over again. So now I know which parts to go ahead and edit out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really like the easy part. Basically looking for all those snaps,
Yeah.
taking them all out. Then I go through the noise removal. Then I go through the first thing that I do is I record a minute's worth of room tone. So that way, when I'm switching out the long areas where I have a breath, but I don't want to just replace it with the Audacity silence because it's jarring. It just sounds like it just takes you right out of it. But if you replace that with room tone, all of a sudden it just sounds like nothing's going on.
Okay,
Yeah.
just for people that didn't catch it from context, could you define what room tone is?
Yes, room tone is basically where you are recording. You're hitting record on your sound editing equipment and letting your microphone get absolutely nothing from you.
Right.
You're just staying silent and just letting that microphone soak up as much time. I like to do like about a minute's worth, just to be on the safe side.
In fact, let me
That
use an
sounds
example.
better than just dead air in
Yes.
the program.
Yes.
Here's a perfect example of room tone. If I talk. Done. That's
Yeah.
room tone.
That was really hard. That's,
Right.
Well, Brad, you always like to talk, I know.
So it's the background noise.
Yes.
Yeah.
However unobtrusive it is, your ear, if you're listening, still picks it up. And so when you
Yes.
hear absolutely nothing, it's jarring because not only is the person not talking, the rest of the room vanished.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Let's put your
Yeah.
cat or dog in another room.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although I will say that my dog Eli has gotten very good at being quiet.
Oh, wow.
So like there'll be times when I'll have to take his collar off and everything because he'll be just kind of moving around. But for the most part, he's gotten very good at being very quiet when I need him to be.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to go to you next, but some voice actors, like some musicians out there, actually build a soundproof room
Yes.
in their
Yes.
house.
Which is in progress at
No,
mine. So.
there you go.
Yeah, mine will be eventually.
And that's actually not very hard to do.
It's not, but it can be expensive depending on how you do it.
There are actually super DIY ways that you
Mhm.
can do that. 'cause
And that takes time, not
Yes.
money.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let Kathleen go, but eventually I do want to go back and give some tips on voice acting and what to avoid doing. Go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about soundproofing actually, and dealing with pets or children or people in the same space as you. How do you go about recording if you live, say, with dogs, or you live in a place where you are not the only occupant? Like, do you have to go somewhere else? What do you do?
What I did was, for my recording, since, like I said, the sound booth is currently in progress, but at the same time, that's not what I used. What I did was I used my backup microphone, which is a USB Blue Snowball Ice microphone. I put it in a small box that I got from Walmart. It's one of those like little fold-up felt boxes. And I lined it with mattress foam. And that basically just soaked up all of the sound that's in the immediate room. Now, if my dogs are barking out in the other room, then it'll pick that up. But at the same time, I'll know that, okay, I'll just let them bark and be quiet and everything. I'll just go ahead and take that out in post.
Right.
And so the main thing that I did, and this is also what I'll be doing when I will be auditioning for Winding Trails Media.
Yay!
Yes, is I will basically just be using my backup microphone, because it's been very good to me with by fitting it in that little box. It really just kind of takes out all of the sound that's around me, and it helps out a lot.
You have to think of sound as a wave.
Yeah.
Sounds are waves, and they constantly bounce back. And so what George has done by creating that box and then lining it with the foam, the waves don't bounce back at the microphone.
Right.
They hit that foam and they kind of die.
He creates a sound shield.
Yeah.
And you can buy those as well, but what he did is a fantastic way to do it
Yeah.
yourself.
Also,
You can
egg
get-
cartons.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You can get rolls of mattress foam for like $10 over at Walmart.
That's what my brother did in his music studio.
Exactly.
Rolls of that just
Yep.
everywhere.
Yeah, there was a story told when I was taking the voice lessons. I don't know if you heard the same story. There's a voice actor who would have to travel for his bill pay job a lot, and he got contacted one time when he was, I don't know where he was, but he was definitely not home. He was out in a hotel room somewhere, and he had to do a quick create your own sound thing, which he was using pillows and everything else to avoid the sounds that he recorded. And eventually, after that, it went over well. After that, he went ahead and just built his own, so he could travel anywhere and be able to do it on a drop of a dime.
Is that the Harlan Hogan?
Yes.
Yes.
I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah. Yeah, Harlan Hogan is very well known in the voiceover community as somebody who has created and made quite a successful business out of making these portable booths that basically just like lets you zip, it'll zip up and everything. It has a handle on it, so that way you can put all your equipment in there and you can go ahead and set it up without a problem. And they run about $400 or something. Or, like I said, you can go to Walmart.
Yeah.
Sorry, Harlan. Sorry to be taking money out of your purse or anything, but that's.
Seriously, yes. So, best thing to do. You can also use if I was doing Right Pack Radio, like I want to in the future, which is in a sound deafened area, now I can't call it soundproof. I would hang from the ceilings. Now, obviously, we'll be downstairs when I do this. Be hanging from the ceiling bed sheets.
Melanie was about ready to
Go crazy. I know, my future wife going, what are we doing? What? Okay.
So we're hanging in from the ceiling where?
But from downstairs, bed sheets, and have that at angles, and that will also help soften and deaden the sounds.
Yeah.
Not to mention putting it in the basement will make it much quieter than it is up here.
Yes.
Mhm.
And there will be the sound of the fan that's going on all the time.
Really, I thought that was background noise.
It is
Like-
background noise. That is room noise.
Yes.
Okay, I was like, no, that's a great way of like blocking out sounds from the street. That's good.
It is. It
Because
does help.
people in counseling offices I know have background noise generators, white noise generators.
That's a phenomenon called the 1K phenomenon.
Hmm.
Audio exists, as we said, in waves and frequencies.
Uh-huh.
And the human voice is at the frequency that's 1,000, so it's 1K. And if you put a noisemaker that's producing white noise at the same frequency, it will deaden the sound of the human voice. Which is why no matter how loud you turn the TV up, your mom vacuuming will still make the TV inaudible, because it's all operating at the same frequency, and our ears can't pick up that human voice tone when that white noise is also present.
That's why headphones that play the TV are very nice in those situations.
Very
Well,
true.
you know, when you're 10 years old and it's the late
Right.
90s, you know.
Our childhoods, everyone, our childhoods.
Another microphone. There's lots. I'm going to tell you what to do as far as a recommendation before you buy any microphone. If you really do want to go down this road, either doing it as a voice actor or doing it yourself. But the microphone you are currently listening to is also from the same company that does the Snowball. This is a Yeti. It's a much bigger microphone. I use it for right pack radio because I'm able to switch it from mono location to omni location, which is what it's all. We're all
Is it location or monodirectional?
monodirectional. Thank you. I knew I was saying the wrong words when I had it. Monodirection, I could flip the switch and you could just hear basically me talking straight into it, or omnidirectional where you're able to hear everybody if it's around the table.
And there's also a bidirectional mode.
Yes,
You're
there's a
having an
bidirectional.
interview with one other person.
Right. So basically, it knows which direction to focus sound on,
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't know. You can change it so it will.
so that it knows.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, Kathleen, you're sitting on the side that has that dial. If you'll see, it's like 4 little symbols.
Oh yeah.
That's the dial I'm talking about. And obviously, you're not sitting in this room for those who are listening at home, but you can look this up online. What I'm going to recommend that you do is go to the nearest guitar center or music location that sells microphones. Test them out. See what you sound best on. If you're not sure how you sound, ask them to record you and to send you that recording, and then pick and choose. Because microphones can get really, 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 did I mention really expensive? But you want something that's going to give you good quality and improve your voice.
Okay, here's a question that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering. How much did the current microphone cost you that we're currently recording on?
How much did that cost me? About 150? Thank you. You were there, I know.
It was a bit less than that because we bought an open box, but
Yeah, I'm thinking of retail straight price.
yeah.
About 150.
And the blue snowball ice, the one that I use for my recording as of right now, that only cost me about $60.
Mhm.
But also just keep in mind that it is a single monodirectional, so the only option you really have is to just speak, right into it.
Right, I'm going to turn this over to you. What I will not recommend doing, besides using your computer microphone, is don't use a headset microphone.
No.
I mean, not for this. Go ahead.
Wait, Dragon doesn't come with the greatest headset ever?
Well, I'm not picking on Dragon, but as far as that headset,
Oh,
it's
a horrible.
I really love the sound of your face rustling against the foam.
Yeah.
It's really attractive.
Especially if you're a dude and you've got a beard.
maybe like Brad and myself. Yes.
Oh yeah. Brad's
So-
beard especially.
Talk about hearing the breaths.
Yes.
So the question that I'm gonna forget
Being ripped
if
by
I don't
the
ask it now, you've got a microphone then. Say
Yes.
you've chosen a microphone. Can you just plug it directly into your computer, or do you recommend getting some kind of converter box?
Well, here's the beauty part.
Well-
so you can get a mixer for your computer
Mixer,
if you
that's the
really, really want one.
What is a mixer though?
Go for it.
It basically, it depends upon how you have it set up. But a mixer or a calibration device of different types can have all kinds of different uses. But usually what it is to bring in an input, i.e. a microphone, and then to allow you to adjust the quality of that audio. So you can raise up the high ends or bring down the lows or however you need to do it so that your voice sounds perfect. Is generally what a mixer is going to be for. An equalizer or any of those kinds of different things. To adjust the audio quality before you get to the end product. You can do this with your computer. You can do it. I mean, he can do it through Audible right now, or Audacity.
Audacity.
That he's got. That we're recording on right now.
Audacity's free, by the way.
Audacity. Is
Audacity is free and it's wonderful.
It's a
It's very
wonderful,
easy.
wonderful product.
Yes.
I love to tell the
Let's all
story.
praise to the God of Audacity.
I love to tell the story of when I was in college. I was a production major, and I had a bunch of friends who were in audio production. And my
Love the
university had a full-fledged studio recording department, so they could learn all the professional stuff. And more often than not, my audio, my friends who are audio majors would take the recordings that they made in the studio back home and used Audacity to complete their project.
Yes.
Instead of the things that were
It's
provided
so
by the
easy. It's
school.
such a wonderful, wonderful tool. Now, I will say the other thing you can have is if you have multiple inputs. So you're running multiple microphones. That's another time you're going to want something in between you and the computer because you only have so many USB ports on your computer.
Yeah, computer only recognizes so many.
Exactly. To the as an audio jack. So if you're if we had 8 microphones right now that we were all talking into, so each one of us had a microphone. You would then throw that into a mixer, which is going to add all those sounds together.
So they would all plug it in the mixer.
Yes.
And then the mixer would be plugged in the computer.
Correct.
Yes.
And it would all be recording on a program like Audacity.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is actually what I do when I'm recording downstairs for any of the podcasts I do for Winding Trails.
And Audacity is what you use to edit recordings as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can turn right around there and you can see where they have the effects and the analyze and the editing. Okay, well,
You can't turn around.
they can't turn around. But you can turn around and look at the TV that is currently displaying,
We can all watch the waveform as,
Yes, the
as we
waveform.
talk.
which is fascinating, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a little hypnotic.
It
And
is
in
a little
Audacity,
hypnotic.
then you can cut sounds like you made the George. You made the loud sound and then the silence. So you look for those spots where the sound spikes in a consistent way, and then delete those parts.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
can, or you can do an envelope over it, which will allow it to narrow out. So the spikes that you're talking about, they're still there technically, but the listener won't hear them.
Yeah.
It's
not,
got some cool
You
tools
can
in
cut
it.
the
Yeah.
high. So if you look over at the waveform,
Stop
right
using
now,
visual references.
Yes.
Well, I'm explaining something. They can, anytime you see the spike in a waveform, that's going to the high end. What you can then do is go in and clip out those high ends, so that the listener doesn't suddenly get blasted in their ears because we all laughed.
So that's one adjustment that people can make
Yes.
when they're editing sound. They
Yep.
can make the
Yeah.
louds not quite so loud.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
They can.
Sadly, I don't do this with Right Back Radio that often. I don't edit to that degree. I will be for radio plays. That's
So
a big
general apology to everyone. We blew your headphones out by
Yes.
accident.
Yes.
When we
Yeah.
laugh or yell or scream.
We
I
do.
won't do it right now.
I'll make sure to pop all my P's
Oh
from
my
now on.
goodness.
Please don't. But one of the
I literally just started shaking as soon as you started doing that.
yeah, please don't, please. But going back to
What
the
did you
editing,
for?
back to your editing question, which George started answering. Reason why I don't do edit that much to that degree is just my time that I have to create the Right Back radio episodes. For every 1 hour of listening when I first started doing this, it was about 4 to 8 hours worth of work. Go ahead.
So, what are some typical edits then that you make, George, that you made in your recording?
Well, let's see. The main one would be whenever I'm screwing up whatever I'm saying.
Flux.
Yeah, any sort of flubs and everything. And then what I'll do is I'll snap, and then I'll wait 5 seconds, then I'll pick up where I left off. I will sometimes be doing a little heavier breathing than expected. And in the case of Excelsior, I was literally sitting at the edge of the couch in my office, leaning down with a TV tray right in front of me with a couple of yearbooks, and then my microphone box right on top of those, with my Kindle Fire right almost like directly right next to me, with the text in a higher a bigger font and double spaced and everything, so it cuts down on mistakes. And there I am, just going like this. So this is why I'm getting a sound booth made right now, because my back was killing me for weeks after all of that was done. So that was a major part. So getting rid of the deeper breaths, getting rid of times where I was giving myself a little too much time, where it seemed like I was going a little bit too slowly between paragraphs, things like that. And obviously outside noise becomes a factor. And then whenever something like that happens, then again you do the snap and wait, and then go off on that. So there are a lot of different things come into play while you're doing the actual recording.
Diaphragm work is extremely critical to voice acting.
I know a woman who does podcasts. She will record herself reading fanfics on Archive of Her Own and post there. And there was definitely a process for that. One of the things that she does, though, is she also will sometimes add music. Is that something that a producer of an audiobook needs to worry about?
You don't need to have that for an audio book necessarily, and you do run into some problems with that.
Yeah.
Number one problem is copyright.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to own the music some way, and be able to, or have paid royalties on that. That gets into a interesting perspective, because you might think certain music is royalty free, and it turns out no, some trust still has it.
So let's say that you do have a music clip that you can use. Say you recorded it, for example.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about incorporating that into an audiobook? And is there a good way to bring in music, or is it just something you should avoid?
The best way to incorporate that is for the beginning and the ending.
Mm-hmm.
The way that that the Jim Dale Harry Potter books will do that little jaunty tune, for the Hogwarts anthem at the beginning, and then at the end. Thankfully, they did not do that jaunty tune at the beginning of Deathly Hallows, because that would have been really weird. They gave some very kind of like low ominous music and everything. It's kind of like how the opening of LA Law used to be. Like if you know it was going to be like a happy episode, then you got that blaring saxophone. If you knew this was going to be a serious one, then it would just start off with a wong and then go into the theme. So it's always like you got to keep in mind what kind of story you're about to tell. If you have separate parts of your book, like if you have like part one yada yada, and then you have different chapters, and then you're moving on to part two, kind of like The Stand. If you want to like put in a little bit of music to introduce that part, then you can do that. It's the main thing is just make sure you're setting the right kind of mood if you're going to go in that direction.
And since we're only talking about audiobooks, I'm just going to say this about audio dramas, is a slightly different aspect. I mean,
No, you're setting a mood.
I'm setting a mood with the music.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different, if you ever look at Audacity, I'm going to have Kathleen just turn around because she can look at it directly, but for you at home, look at this online on Google. You can see plenty of images. And basically, each sound wave that you've got in Audacity is a track.
Yes.
So right now, I'm recording this on a stereo track.
Yep.
You've got 2 lines for the voice. But if I wanted to do music, what I would do is I would end up possibly either putting a space in that line where we're talking, and then create another track that has music in that space area, or I would have, if a direction is bring the music up sharp, then fade to background, I would then have the music come up sharp, and then fade behind your voice and into the background, or just really fade out.
What you're going to end up doing is layering the audio.
Exactly.
So you're going to lay the spoken word over the music. Now you're going to draw back the music so that it's very soft, so that you can hear the voices. And as David was just mentioning, if the music needs to suddenly become to the forefront, then you'll raise up the level of the music and drop back the level of the voice. So it's all about layering. I mean, every audio file is a mixture of many layers, except what we're doing, which is a single layer.
Right.
Okay. So, George, you've gone into this a little bit, but what are some tips for recording audio? You mentioned big text. What else?
Yes. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you're screwing up as little as possible. So what you want to do, and this is something that this is something I want to just kind of reach out and recommend to all writers that are doing any sort of speaking. If you're doing any sort of like reading or anything like during your book launch, do not read directly from your book. Go ahead and print out, know what you're going to read, so you can print it out on larger font, double spaced. That will reduce the amount of screw-ups. You will not lose your place as much. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're recording in Audacity, David mentioned that we're recording right now in stereo. You want to record in mono when you're recording for ACX. You also want to make sure that you have read your book again before you start reading it, because you do not want to give yourself what I call the Joey Tribbiani moment. Anytime when he starts like, whenever he starts reading something and all of a sudden he's got a surprise, then all of a sudden like his whole voice just completely goes off the rails, his eyes are bugging out and everything, especially when he's reading Rachel's dirty book. So Friends reference, yes, for anyone wondering. Yeah. And also you want to know if you want to know how you're going to read this book. You want to decide on whether or not you're going to do the Jim Dale method, where you're going to give different characters different voices, or if you're going to do like a typical book, which is heard a lot, which is where you're using just one voice. But if you're using a female voice, then you give it a little higher lilt, and then if you have a figure of authority or a villain, then you bring it down a little bit more. And also, just the main thing to keep in mind, and this is something that I really need to stress to anyone who wants to try the different character voice. You are not Chris Latta. Chris Latta is somebody who we know from our generation. Even if you don't know him by name, you know him by voice. Chris Latta did the voice of Starscream on Transformers. He did the voice of Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe. And he had, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He's been gone for over 20 years. But he was somebody who could give that voice for hours at a time and still be able to come into the studio the next day for recording. You cannot do that. If you try that, you will blow out your voice. I will tell you that first and foremost. I have said that a couple weeks ago when we were at Writers in the Park, and I even provided a little clip of Cobra Commander to remind people, you cannot do that.
Who's got a good Cobra Commander impression to pull out?
I know.
I do.
Later. Another person you're not is Mel Blanc.
No.
I mean, you're not Bugs Bunny's Yosemite Sam, but
he was just all of them.
He was. He was a little.
He was literally all of them. So
He was 1,000 more.
A couple other recommendations. You'll see me. Those of you who are in St. Louis that come to St. Louis Writers Guild's open mic night will see me do this constantly if you're paying attention. I walk up to the microphone and I put my fist from the soft end against the mic in my mouth, basically at where my thumb is. That's the proper distance that you want. You don't want to be eating the ice cream cone, as they say, and you don't want to be way back. That's something to practice as well. Another thing too, your pace on reading. This is why audio dramas are written the way they are. Is basically you're looking at 150 to 200 words a minute that you're speaking. If you've got a typical manuscript page, if you've typed something up in Times New Roman or Arial, say font 11 or 12, double space, your average words per page is roughly 250 to 300. So you're not translating one page to 1 minute. It's almost 1 page to 2 minutes, give or take. But that's the pace you're looking for. Audio drama, basically 1 page is 8 minutes. Also, a couple other things. Number 3 on my list is you want to do tongue twisters. You want to be able to get your around the Catherine's give me a look. Around the rugged rascal ran.
Why? Why tongue twisters?
Because you're loosening up the muscles on your tongue.
So you kind of do warm-ups?
You're doing warm-ups. You want to be able to do some of those warm-ups. It's going to make talking easier. The next one, then I'll hop it over. As I have my own problem. This is the reason I haven't really gone into voice acting in my PCD. Because breath control, really, even with breath control, it triggers like crazy. But then one of the things you want to do is if you have phlegm, if you've got phlegmy voices, and you want to do audio, there's a couple things to do. One, not to do. Avoid dairy. Don't eat, drink any dairy at least a couple hours before you do it. Dairy creates phlegm. But let's say you're screwed anyway. There's a home remedy. I will tell you that you are going to be very surprised by the taste the first time you do this. Take a glass of water and go out and get some alum. I believe I'm pronouncing it alum, which is used for pickling. You put in about 1/4 of a teaspoon, if not less, more closer to 1/8 of a teaspoon, into this water. Mix it real well, down it fast. It's like drinking pickle juice. Yes, but what that does, it dries out the mouth and the throat.
This was
Or
actually
water.
recommended to gargle with it and then spit it out. But drinking it won't actually hurt you.
Yeah, drinking won't hurt you. I don't gargle well, so I just
I
drink
could
it.
drink all the milk and then just do this and be like pickle juice. Awesome.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that. But that will clear it up for a temporary time. Go ahead.
Put it out there. To do voice acting is just like acting.
Mhm.
So there are 1,000 different techniques out there for actors to use when they're getting ready to perform. It is all the same. So you're instantly going to want to make sure your posture is right.
Right.
You're going to want to make certain, because the moment your posture is right, the moment you start to be able to breathe correctly, you're not going to want to slouch, you're not going to want to compress yourself, you want to open yourself up, you want to speak up, you want to lift up your chin, you're going to want to project out your words. The reason why a tongue twister is to work your mouth, the same
Right.
way singers do before they sing,
Exactly.
actors do before they go on stage. And by doing that, what you're really then allowing yourself to do is any word you come across, you're going to be able to pronounce.
Right.
So we all have idioms that we use in our speaking where we say certain words certain ways because our mouth has learned to shortcut that, pronunciation of that word. This is where you get different dialects like washing and stuff like that.
I was wondering about that.
And this is how these idioms come about because you're using a shortcut so that your mouth doesn't, your voice box doesn't have to formulate completely to get the word out. It can just kind of shove it out and it'll be okay. The pacing that you use, the way in which you speak, obviously, if it's an exciting scene, you're probably going to increase your pace of your voice. If it's a slower scene, you're probably going to slow down a little bit. But you don't want to slow down too much because you don't want to make the listener fall asleep. These are all things, and one of the things I can highly recommend is going and checking out all the hundreds of sites out there to help actors become better actors. Screw, you can do all the emoting with your face and all that kind of stuff. All of that helps as well.
And don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, no, you're going to want to.
Yeah.
You're going to run the gambit. It looks stupid. It doesn't matter. You're the only one in the room. But doing those kinds of things is going to help your performance. And that's what this is. I mean, the audiobook is a performance of the book. I highly recommend, don't try and read the entire book at once. I'm sure George would tell you that.
Yeah.
The point is that you're going to take that section that you're about to do and do it before you actually sit down and record it. So say every line that you're going to say, know how you're going to inflect in this part, know that if you hit this treble spot, where there's, like as Han Solo used to, or as Harrison Ford used to say about George Lucas's writing, you could write this, but you certainly couldn't say it. When you come up to all this complex science fiction language, you've got to say it with meaning, so that it actually isn't just you kind of rushing over words that have no meaning.
Right.
So it's all that kind of stuff. So you're going to take these little snippets, you're going to work them beforehand, and then you're going to sit down and you're going to finally record it. And in that way, when you actually do end up recording it, it's going to sound very natural. It's going to sound very much like how we hear it when we read it. And that's kind of what you're trying to replicate, is what the reader hears in their own mind as they read the book.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think you've been weighing at both George and I think have some other tips to give. So, but do you have questions?
On an encouraging note,
You love encouragement.
here in the Midwest, we have, I guess, the non-accent for Americans. We're supposed to have the one that newscasters use
Right.
around about
The
our
neutral
area,
accent.
the neutral
Yes.
accent. So we're not East Coast, we're not West Coast, but they understand us well enough, so that's what
But we're not
newscasters use. Yes.
Yes.
But if you have an accent, you are probably still fine. There
Oh,
are
yeah.
podcasts, for example, of Lightspeed and Uncanny Magazine and Apex Magazine that I listen to, where the story is about someone from Nigeria, and they bring in someone with a Nigerian accent. So someone is going to have a story that needs your accent, so don't be afraid to use it. Like, it
Think
can work
about
for
every
you.
British book out there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I've noticed talking to people on the phone, even in the Midwest, even in this city, very often I make assumptions, and because of my job I realize I'm making assumptions. Most people do this unconsciously about who the people is based on what their voice sounds like. So even here we have accents that tell you a lot about the person.
Yes, my sister has surprised many a person by not looking how they think she should look based on her phone voice.
Yes.
It's brilliant.
Oh yeah, especially if you're a minority, you can really confuse people by having a white
non-stereotypical
sounding
accent.
voice. Yeah. And British accents really throw off Americans.
Well, there's the old adage about the sex worker who's on the phone sex line, who sounds like this incredibly gorgeous woman, but she's really, a normal person doing
She looks
her
like
laundry.
Lee. She sounds like Lee and looks like me.
I'll take that compliment.
Also, Lee's hair is adorable today, just so you guys know.
Something you can't tell.
A few other tips, and then George and I back and forth for a little bit. One of the things is, did you have your?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, I thought you
Jen's
cut
done with
Jen
all
off.
of us.
No, you're fine.
She's done with all of us.
Practice reading. What Brad talked about earlier is very true, but don't just limit it to your own work. Read everything in practice.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
literally, pull out books, pull out comic books. I do that. I do comic books because it's easy to see the character. I can look at it and go, how is the Joker going to sound? How is
Like Mark Hamill.
Mark? Yeah, which is going to bring up another thing.
Yeah. You're not Mark Hamill.
You're not Mark Hamill. But on a sidebar, if you can see,
I'm not
what was that? The one that Killer Joke.
The Killing
Joke.
Killing Joke. Thank you. I knew I was wrong as soon as I said. I was like, yeah.
Which I
Killing
just
Joke.
watched, by the way.
Yeah. Did you watch the extras? Watch the extras. And the extras has Mark Hamill doing the Joker in the booth. Watch his face. Watch how he actually acts the part. And this is what you want to be able to do when you do a character actor. You're not Mark Hamill, but just watch and learn.
Watch the extras of the Killing Joke. If you want to see the problematic ways women are portrayed and used in fiction that gets
Thank you,
them
yes.
fridged, watch The Killing Joke. If you
Yeah.
don't want to be disgusted by those things, don't watch The Killing Joke. Apparently the extras are
And
great.
actually, they added to the story to be able to
Yeah.
make it less fridged than
Less
it really
fridged.
is
Yeah.
in the
Real
book.
quick,
if you
before
thought
we-
the movie was
What I
fridge,
heard,
the
what I
comic.
heard they added, no, I've read the comic. What I heard that they added to the film that I should stop talking about was not in a good direction.
No. Well,
Okay,
it's okay.
it was more about the way they told the story and from the perspective. It really was that girl's story, the way they told it.
Right.
Was she?
We won't get into
No,
debate. We're talking about
back to
audio.
this, back to this, back to
Real
this.
quick,
If you want to hear my opinion on this, listen to our Problematic Portrayals in Women podcast
Yes,
yes.
from a year ago.
Real quick to throw out, I was ripping Dragon earlier before, but one of the things I love Dragon for is they would have you read from Alice in Wonderland. And it is a wonderful, wonderful thing to read as practice reading because it has a rhythm to it
Right.
that is amazing, yet it also then has crazy ass words that are thrown at you that are just impossible to pronounce when you just come across them and you're reading them. So it kind of, yeah, exactly, something like Jabberwocky or something like, any of the numerous words that they throw at you. And it forces you into certain ways of speaking. So, it was one of the things I love Dragon for.
Okay.
Okay. I thought this might help you guys. If you are going to do this, maybe a tip that some of us writers do is we like to put up pictures that represent our characters. So if you're going to be representing characters, you might want to find images that represent that for you to have that up. So while you're reading that particular character, you can visualize them, get in that mindset. Maybe even, depending if you're into cosplay, get into the character
There you
Well,
go.
it's very
physically to portray it even more.
on a milder, more everyday note. That's good advice, even if you're doing like a phone interview. When I was doing phone interviews, I was because I was applying to a lot of jobs that were out of state back when I was trying to be an animator. When you learn to do a phone interview, even though you are at home and they cannot see you, dress in your interview clothes because it will give you interview subconscious personality
Right.
poise.
This
And
one
you'll
is they tell you to stand up.
Yeah, you'll interview better on the phone if you are interviewing as if you are in person.
Going back to Lee, which is a very good point. Going back to Lee, that's exactly what Mel Blanc would do is he would look at Porky Pig or Donald Duck.
I thought you were going to say dressed up as Bugs Bunny.
He didn't have a costume.
Different
But he would look at the image and create the voice, looking at how this character is drawn. Go ahead.
There's a terrific documentary that's on Netflix right now that John DiMaggio put together. John DiMaggio is the voice of Bender from Futurama and voice of many other characters out there. But he did a documentary called "I Know That Voice," which focuses on voice acting in animation. And there are so many great tips and so many great great things to think about when going in this direction. One of the people that was interviewed was Charlie Adler, who is he's a voice director and a veteran for several decades. And he says that he always sings before going to and coming from the studio. So, I actually kind of incorporated that a little bit. When I would kind of get warmed up, my own warming up is basically just reciting lyrics from Without Me by Eminem. That helps out a lot. So if you can find certain songs or anything that are kind of complicated, that you can just go ahead and just spit out as you're getting yourself warmed up. That's always a good thing. And also to play on what Brad had said before, saying that you definitely do not want to read your entire book in one sitting. No matter, even if you think that it's just, it's only about 30,000 words or whatever, you are giving, your reader is investing their time in you. You have to make sure that every second of that time is time well spent. I am, currently on Amazon, on Audible or Amazon or Apple, whatever. If you get the audiobook for Excelsior, I will be whispering sweet nothings into your ear for about 7 hours. So I damn well better make sure that is time well spent and that the quality that I am giving every second of that recording is worth your time.
And on final thoughts.
Well, I want to throw out my 3 favorite voiceover people. I follow them. I highly recommend following them. Read the blogs. Check out their interviews. My favorite is Andrea Romano, who does all the voice directing for anything Batman related or Marvel related. She's an amazing woman. And then Cree Summer, who has done voices for everything. And then finally Tara Strong. Because these 3 women are amazing voiceover actresses. And to be honest, what they have to say on the subject is just gold for all I can say.
I totally agree with all 3 of those.
Yeah.
I've got one voice actor, but Kathleen, you've got your hand up.
This is not a voice actor,
Okay.
but it is another note of encouragement. I know that it has been said here that you are not Mark Hamill, you are not other people whose names I am blanking on. Ha ha ha. Anyway, you are not those people, but you are yourself, and you might have a great gift for voice work. You might have so many voices that you can actually make come out your mouth that are amazing. So, don't try to be those people, but if you have a gift for it, try and do your own. Try and be yourself.
Be you.
Yeah, try to do what a lot of people tend to do is kind of take try to do bad impressions of people. I can when I met Dana Snyder, who's the voice of Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, I actually just blurted out to him, "What are you doing with that beard? Answer that, scientist!" And got a laugh out of him and everything. But I would never try that voice, in my own thing because it's a very specific kind of voice. So you can take take people that you think are somewhat like this kind of person. Don't try to do a spot on impression of them. Try to do something that kind of captures a spirit, but at the same time is a little off, is a little different. One of the great examples is Peter Cullen, who does the voice of Optimus Prime. He did that voice based on John Wayne, and as soon as you hear it, it's just oh, I get it.
Well, some actors will go through hundreds of different incarnations of their own voice, trying to find that voice for that character. So don't be afraid to try every inflection your voice can make.
Definitely play outside the box. One actor I was going to mention, he's really, really popular on Audible, and that's Scott Brick. If you can He's a good one to listen to, a good one to follow. But going back, play with your voice, play outside the box. Some other ways to practice, if you've got kids, read to them, because you're automatically going to change your voice for the characters.
Also, it's good for developing minds.
It is. And then also, too, if you don't have them, if you can go to a nursing home and volunteer to read.
Also good for aging minds.
Good for aging minds. It's a good way to practice and practice and practice. And unless we have any final thoughts, we've kind of gone long on this episode, so have a great week writing. I wish I could do Porky Pig there.
I was gonna say, can anyone do a Porky Pig? That's all, folks.
That's all, folks.
So are you
can't do
gonna cut
Melbourne.
that first take?
Huh?
You can cut the first take of you being like, we're done.
We're done.
Are
No,
Now
we're
we're
done.
done.
We're
Now-
done.
so done.
Okay, no wait, we're editing that out. Now we're done.
All right.
And in 5, 4.
32. What?
Blast off.
That's all, folks.
What does
For real.
That's all, folks.
Have you ever written an audio play? Have you even considered writing one? Visit www.windingtrailsmedia.com because currently we are looking for audio plays to produce. Again, that is www.windingtrailsmedia.com and visit Calls for Scripts. And while you're at it, please sign up for the newsletter and you will find that icon at the bottom of every page.
Did you know that Right Pack Radio has an international audience? How would you like to reach that audience in regards to your books, your book services, your author services, or more? Go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com and look under advertising for more information. If you don't have a script, that's not a problem. We will be happy to work with you. Once again, go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com for more information.
The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.